Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Welcome to the Fourth Angels Learning Center. My name is Jadiel, and I want to thank you guys and welcome you guys to part 3 of the difficult questions of the calendar. So what we're doing is we're answering specific questions that has come about during our conversations and studies. And we want to just address it because if we believe that if some people have questions that it's not that much of a stretch that another person has the same questions. Matter of fact, a lot of these questions stem around the same arguments. A lot of these questions stem around watching the same YouTube videos. So we like to address the questions or the frequently asked questions that seem to have the same theme behind them. So this is going to be part 3. We're going to be discussing the day and certain scriptures that's used to kind of focus on answering the question of when the day starts. We do have a video called When the Day Starts, which touches on a few other things, a few other ideas. So we're going to be just specifically focusing on the questions, seeing if we could eliminate certain ideas so that way people won't use wrong interpretations of scripture to come up with a conclusion. If there is an explanation, we're going to look at these scriptures. We're going to investigate these scriptures to see if they help the argument or if it cannot be used for the argument. This is one of the main things we want to do before moving forward. If you guys are honest about whether or not it can be used for the argument, or if it doesn't, if you find clarity in these videos, please email us whatever else could be convincing or provoking the mind to kind of agree with certain ideas. If I'm against certain ideas that you see is valid, then please send us the questions or send us the scriptures that you would like us to address, so that way we can make a video promptly about those questions as well. We don't want to leave any stone unturned. So before we get into it, I want to remind everybody, if this ministry has been a blessing to you, we want to encourage you guys to support this ministry. You can support us at 4ALC. The PayPal instructions is in the description below. You can also support us at Cash App, which is $4ALC Bless. That's 4ALC BLESS. Okay. If you haven't already, this is the first time watching us, or if you have and have not done yet, please consider subscribing, clicking the notification bell for new content that's coming out soon. I think the major support of this ministry comes from not only watching and liking, but also sharing the videos in order to get the content in the eyes of other people, in the ears of other people, so that way we can all kind of work together in spreading this truth on a higher level. So with that being said, we're going to get started. The first question is, does Exodus 16 verse 22 to 27, I guess it's specific verses, does Exodus 16 verse 22 to 27 teach us that the day starts during the day? Why would Moses, I guess, tell them to keep the Shabbat during the day? So we're going to address it. Exodus 16. So there's the claim that Exodus 16 verse 22 to 27 is talking about Moses, I guess, talking about the day. So let's take a look at this. I'm very familiar with Exodus 16. It's talking about when he's establishing a Shabbat with the children of Israel, but also establishing the collecting of manna. Verse 22 to 27, it says, and it came to pass that on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man, and all the rulers of the assembly came and told Moshe. He said unto them, this is that which Yahuwah has said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Shabbat unto Yahuwah. Bake that which you will bake today, boil that which you will boil, and that which remains you lay up to be kept until the morning. Until the morning. And it says they laid it up until the morning, as Moshe bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein. It says what, verse 27? It says, Moshe said, eat that today, for today is the Shabbat unto Yahuwah. Today you shall not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is the Shabbat, in it there shall be none. It came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day for to gather, and they found none. So I guess they're referring to Moshe saying, tomorrow is the rest of the Shabbat, the holy Shabbat, and to keep it until the morning. So I guess they're saying that the Shabbat starts in the morning because he told them to keep the food until the morning. And instead of saying, keep it until the night. So I want to emphasize on first the idea that they were not given any dates. We talked about this in a previous Q&A video. There still is, even in the reinstitution of the Shabbat, there is no institution of any dates of the month in which the Shabbat will land. Just to bring that up, because this would be the best time, especially since he addressed certain dates in Exodus 12 when they left Egypt. The Shabbat is now continuously not placed on any particular date in these instructions. Second is I noticed that there's not really an emphasis in this whole chapter about when the days start. In the last video, it made mention in Exodus 12 that he's emphasizing on beginning the months and restoring the understanding of counting the months. Then he begins to count the months and gives them certain dates of the month. It starts out with the 10th day of the month. So when we get to Exodus 16, there's this assumption that Moses knows about the weekly cycle. It says, Yahuwah said unto Moses, I will rain bread from the heavens for you. The people shall go out to gather a certain amount every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my Torah or not. It shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they shall gather daily. So he's not saying the 6th of the month. He's saying on the 6th day. There was this understanding of the 6th day. But the crazy thing is that the lunar Sabbath calendar says that the Shabbat lands on the 8th. At least the first Shabbat lands on the 8th. So there is no re-emphasizing on what dates the Shabbat lands on, because if it says on the 6th day, they would have to already understand the count, which is nowhere to be found. But if it is referring to a weekly cycle that was already understood by many nations because they adhered to the 7-day week cycle that was set up during creation, there wouldn't be an issue with him just simply telling him to collect a double portion or twice as much on the 6th day. Okay? So this is the emphasis of this whole chapter. There's going to be bread being rained down. There has to be collected a certain amount every day. And on the 6th day, there was a special instruction to collect twice as much than what they gathered on a normal day. If we go down all the way to the verses that we was just reading earlier, the same continuation or the same emphasis is focused on. In verse 15, it says, and they said to one another, it is manna, for they knew not what it was. And Moshe said unto them, this is the bread which Yahuwah shall give you to eat. Verse 16, this is the thing which Yahuwah hath commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, and the omer of every man according to the number of his persons. Take ye every man for them which he are in his tent. So take as much as you need for the amount of people in your home. The children of Israel did so and gathered, some more, some less. When they did meet it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing left over. He that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating. This is not an emphasis on when the day starts. This is an emphasis on when to gather manna, right? Let's continue. So he's telling them what's going to happen if they gather more than what they're supposed to. It says that if you leave any until the morning, that it is notwithstanding they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left it until morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moses was wroth with them. They gathered it every morning. They did not gather manna every night. They gathered it every morning, and every man according to this eating. When the sun waxed hot, the manna melted. So it came to pass that on the 6th day that they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man, and all the rulers of the assembly came and told Moses. And he said to them, this is that which Yahuwah have said. Tomorrow is the rest of the set apart Shabbat unto Yahuwah. Remember, this is the 6th day. It says, bake that which you will bake today, seethe that which you will seethe, and that which remains lay over for to be kept until the morning. So is he saying to keep the manna up for the morning because the morning is the Sabbath? No, that's not what he's saying. It says they laid it up till the morning as Moses bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm in it. Eat today, eat that today. So now the morning came, eat that what you have today, for today is the Shabbat unto Yahuwah. Today, look at what it says here, verse 25, you shall not find it in the field. Why is the emphasis on the morning? Is it because the Shabbat starts in the morning? No. The emphasis of the morning is because no manna is going to fall. And he was informing them, saying that save what you have for the morning. It would be silly to think that if they made food, that they wouldn't have anything to eat at night, or that they don't eat at night. Of course they eat at night. The emphasis was to save some for the morning, because the manna wasn't going to fall in the morning, because that's when they gathered the manna. Let's go back. It says they gathered it every morning, and by noontime, it melted. So when the sun waxed hot in the sky, all the manna melted, but they first gathered it in the morning. What he was saying was to keep it until the morning, verse 23, because if you won't find it in the field that Shabbat morning. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Shabbat, in it there shall be none. It came to pass that there went out some people on the 7th day to gather, and they found none. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, he says, how long do you refuse to guard my commandments and my Torah? So what's the emphasis here? Is he saying to hold the manna until the morning because the morning is the Shabbat? No, he said tomorrow is the Shabbat. He was saying this on the 6th day. So when he said tomorrow, he was referring to the next day. But what he wanted to emphasize on was to keep some until the morning, the food, because there's not going to be any manna that falls. Case in point, the very last verse that we referenced was verse 27. But in verse 28, you see that they went out to gather, and then Yah said, you did not keep my commands. You did not keep my commands. So the emphasis in Exodus 16 is not an emphasis on when the day starts, nor can you prove that the day starts during the day or the Shabbat starts during the day. What you can prove is that the Shabbat was a day that they had to keep food until the morning, because the mornings was usually when they collected the manna, and that they wouldn't be able to collect the manna on Shabbat morning. So they needed to save some for that morning. Does that mean that they didn't have any that night? No. That absolutely does not mean that they didn't have any that night. The idea that once the sun set, nobody does anything, everybody goes to sleep it doesn't even make any sense, especially in the springtime. So we have to understand, like, just because the sun sets, everybody doesn't go to sleep. Things don't stop at night. So they had food. Some people probably ate at night. That's how they did it. Matter of fact, that's how they ate the Passover, at night. So the emphasis was, tomorrow is a Shabbat. Don't you keep some of this for the morning time of the Shabbat, because the morning time where you normally gather manna, you won't find manna. So to use it that it's teaching us about when the Shabbat starts or when the day starts, that's not what it's saying there. Okay. So another emphasis is that our days only the daytime. Are the days that's written in scripture, when it mentions the day, is it only the daytime? Yeah, let me clarify some confusion. So in Genesis chapter 1, he does call the light, he does refer to the light as day in verse 5. It says Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and evening and morning were the first day, right? So it's talking about the first day, or the structure of that day, the transition aspects of that day as well. He called the light part of the day Yom as well. So this is why many people say only the light part of the day is called the day. So the question is in scripture, is Yom only the light part of the day? We can clearly see that it is the light part of the day, but is that the only way that the word Yom in Hebrew is used? Let's look at a few verses. Let's go to Deuteronomy 34. Deuteronomy 34, verse 8. Look at what it says. The children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab for 30 days. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moshe were ended. You see that? The days of weeping and mourning for Moshe were ended. So it'll be really silly to think that this word here is Yom. Yes, of course. It'll be silly to think that they wept during the day only, and that they did not weep for 30 nights. They're talking about a collective cycle, but we're gonna prove this idea. We're gonna prove this idea. Let's go to Mark. Let's go to Mark chapter 1, verse 13. It says, and he was there in the wilderness for 40 days and was tempted by Satan, and was with the wild beasts, and the angels ministered to him. So Messiah, it says the Ruach drove him to the wilderness, and he was there in the wilderness for 40 days, right? So Mark indicates he was in the wilderness for 40 days, and that he was tempted by Hasatan, or the adversary, and was with the wild beasts, and the angels, the Malachim, ministered to him. Let's correlate that with what it says in Luke chapter 4. Luke chapter 4, verse 2 says, being 40 days tempted by the devil, and in those days he did eat nothing, and when they were ended, he afterward hungered. If we're looking at the term Yom here, or day, as only the daytime, it would be an assumption that he wasn't tempted at night, or something along those lines. It says in those days he did not eat. So in those light periods, he did not eat. Well, we'll see. If we go to Matthew, chapter 4, I believe, look at what it says here. When he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights. 40 days and 40 nights. So the interesting thing is that he was when Mark mentioned it and when Luke mentioned it, the nights was incorporated in it. How could the nights only be, how can the day only be the daytime just because it says 40 days, but then it mentions that it was 40 days and 40 nights, that the nights was also incorporated in it, in the 40 days that he fasted. Let's look at a few more. Let's go back to see the Hebrew scriptures real quick. In Numbers chapter 20. Let's look at verse 29. Numbers chapter 20, verse 29. It says, when all the assembly saw Aaron dead, that they mourned for Aaron 30 days, 30 yom. It doesn't say anything about nights, but it's incorporated, it's implied. It's not a reference to the cycle of a day is incorporated in the night. We just saw that with the 40 days that Messiah fasted. So if the 40 days that Messiah fasted, it was incorporating nights. Why do we think that anywhere else that it mentions days, that it's not incorporating the night or a cycle in which includes the night? Let's look at a few more verses. Let's go to Leviticus 8. It's always good to establish this with Torah. Leviticus 8, looking at verse 35. Look at what it says here. It says, therefore shall you abide. This is referring to the time, the priest service at the tabernacle, at the door of the tabernacle. Look at what it says in verse 33. We're going to read verse 33 to 35. It says, you shall not go out of the door of the tabernacle of the assembly for 7 days, until the days of your consecrations be at an end. For 7 days shall he consecrate you. And as he has done this, so Yahuwah have commanded to do, and to make an atonement for you. Therefore you shall abide at the door of the tabernacle of the assembly day and night for 7 days. So Yom here is incorporating night. So when it says 7 days, it's talking about a cycle of day and night. Day and night. Now, I'm not talking about the sequence, day and night. I'm talking about the element, the daytime and the nighttime. I know where people are going, so we're going to touch on that in a second. So it says that the door of the tabernacle of the assembly, day and night, 7 days, and guard the watch of Yahuwah, that you die not, for I am commanded. Very clear. Day and night, 7 days, showing that it's not only the word yom is not only used for the daytime, it's also used for a day cycle, which incorporates the night. Let's look at a few more verses. Let's go to Esther. Let's go to Esther chapter 4, verse 16. Go gather together all the Yahudim. This is referring to the time that the Jews had to because of the law that Haman tricked the king of Persia to incorporate, which is the slaughtering of the Jews in Persia, in Babylon, that they were allowed to defend themselves. But before that time, Esther asked Mordecai to tell them to fast, so that way things can go according to plan. So it says that they gathered together all the Yahudim that are present in Shushan and fast you for me. It says neither eat nor drink for 3 days. Look at what it says, night or day. So it says night or day. It doesn't say day or night. It's changing the sequence around. No, I'm not going to make this a doctrinal statement based teaching the cycle of the day. I can use other commandments for that, such as the Passover and the Shabbat and things like that. What I am showing is that the night and the day is involved in a cycle of 3 days. 3 days equals 3 nights and days. I also and my handmaidens will fast likewise, and so will I go into the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So he's telling them fast for 3 days, night and day, incorporating the night into those things. Let's go to Exodus. This is one of the most obvious ones. Exodus chapter 12. And I want us to kind of see the simplicity in these statements and not try to, sometimes we try to go so deep, we get blinded by how deep we want to go what we want to see, that we don't see the obvious things all over the place. Exodus chapter 12, looking at verse 15 to 20, it talks about unleavened bread, feast of unleavened bread. It says 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread or matzah. The first day you shall put away leaven out of your house. Whosoever eats kamet or leaven from the first day until the seventh day, the first day of the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. Is it talking about the first daytime and then at night they can eat unleavened bread? No, it's not talking about that. We have to make sure that we're not allowing verses that don't teach doctrine to cause us to create a doctrine. This is what's going on with a lot of these ideas. We're using verses that is not written to promote a doctrine or a teaching. It's written to help us understand what's going on. First day until the seventh day, that's day and night. You're supposed to have no unleavened bread, no leaven, day and night for 7 days. Verse 16, in the first day, there shall be a holy assembly, and in the seventh day, right, there shall be a holy assembly to you. The interesting thing is, I believe that this part is talking about the daytime, but the eating wouldn't make any sense, because you gather together as an assembly during the daytime, but it says that leaven is not supposed to be in your house from the first day, the first yom to the seventh yom. That doesn't mean that you can have leaven in your house at night. But here, the assemblies usually took place during the day, so they understood when to apply that. It says, no manner of work shall be done in them, except that which every man must eat. That alone may be done. I think you kind of get the point. It says, you shall guard the feast of matzah, unleavened bread, for in the selfsame day have I brought your enemies out of the land of Egypt. This is another interesting aspect. The selfsame day he brought them out of the land of Egypt. Have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt? Therefore shall you guard this day in your generations. What is he referring to? The first day of unleavened bread, 15th of the month. He starts going down. The first of the month of the 14th day of the month, at even, you shall eat matzah until the 21st day of the month. These are dates different from the seventh day. These are dates, just incorporating a little bit of information from the first question about the Sabbath. So I want to look at this for a second. It says, in the selfsame day, I have brought your armies out of the land of Mitzrayim. When did he bring them out? It says the 15th day. He's talking about the 15th day, the first day of unleavened bread. See, you shall guard the feast of unleavened bread. For in this selfsame day, I brought you out of the land of Egypt. So let me prove that. Numbers chapter 3, looking at verse 33. He says very clearly, it says of Merari, of the well, I think I'm in the wrong thing. Sorry. Numbers 33, verse 3. Look at what it says. They departed from Ramses in the first month on the 15th day of the first month, the morrow after Pesach. Children of Israel went out with the high hand in the sight of all Egypt, Mitzrayim, all Egypt, on the 15th Yom, the 15th day, which takes us back to what we was reading in Exodus, which states in verse 17, the feast of unleavened bread, in the selfsame day, I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. This is talking about the 15. Now, it says day, but did they leave during the day? Did they leave during the day? Deuteronomy 16 tells us in verse 1, guard the month of Abib, keep the Pesach unto yahuah Elohika, for in the month of Abib, yahuah Elohika brought you out of Mitzrayim when? When did he bring them out? It says by night. By night, he brought them out. You see that? Give me 1 second. So even though it's the 15th day, they left at night. You can check that out in Exodus 12. It was very obvious that they left at night. Very clear that they were delivered and brought out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt, at night on the 15th day of the month. Okay? So again, we see that even though it says the 15th Yom, they were let out at night. So the nighttime is incorporated in the 15th Yom, the 15th day, has a day and night in it. All right. So let's continue. There's a lot of people with these questions, so I want to make sure that we clarify these things. Let's go to Numbers chapter 12, and we're going to look at verse 2 specifically, and then we're going to look at a few more verses in this chapter. It says here, and they said, has Yahuwah indeed spoken only by Moshe? Has he not spoken also by us? And Yahuwah heard it? Verse 5 to 8, and this is a point that I want to make, because there's a lot of emphasis on the book of Enoch. And I want to make an emphasis here. Look at what it says here. Look at what Yahuwah says about Moses. Yahuwah came down in the pillar of cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not that way, who is faithful in all my house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches, and the similitude of Yahuwah shall he behold. Wherefore then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? There's a very big distinction between the writings of Moses and the writings of everyone else. I want us to understand this point very seriously. Throughout the scriptures, from Genesis all the way to Revelation, there's an emphasis on the importance of Moses being the criteria maker. You use Torah to test the prophets. You use Torah and the prophets that have been tested to test everything else, New Testament, whatever. If it doesn't line up there, you cannot state that it is a truth, because it does not line up with Moses and the prophets. Let me show you a verse, the prophet Isaiah, which is definitely already established by the king Hezekiah, established by, Israel in time past, established in the New Testament as well. So many quotes from Isaiah. I think is the most quoted prophet. So Isaiah chapter 8, looking at verse 20, look at the principle he gives us. To the Torah and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. So what usually happens is there's this emphasis that Moses didn't have everything written down. So if Moses didn't have everything written down, then he can't test the stuff that he doesn't have written down, right? That's the problem. Why is Isaiah, which is years after Moses, right? Why is Isaiah, during the time of Hezekiah, telling them that you have to use Torah to test every word? What about all the stuff that Torah doesn't talk about? Well, guess what? It still has to be tested. And if it can't be confirmed with Torah and the testimonies, the prophets, you cannot verify that it is true. You may not be able to declare that it is incorrect, but you cannot verify that it is true, because Torah does not back it up exclusively. The prophets knew this. So let's go back. Let's go back to, so we can clearly see that the days and the nights are not separated at all. And we could also see that there's sometimes that the phrase day and night, and there's also a phrase night and day. So the idea that you see, like when you see day and night, it's not an indicator that they are believing the day starts during the day. And likewise, when you see the phrase night and day, it's not an indicator that the day starts at night. But when they say certain things is coming and it is nighttime, you can clearly see something is starting. But we're going to look at that in a little while. So there's this thing going around, a question about the day and how no one can work at night. I think this is connected to John 11, but we're going to look at some of those verses where John 11 says, the night is coming where no man can work. See, at night, nobody works. And I want to correlate with the Shabbat as well at the end. Nobody at night works. Let's go to that verse. So it's from John chapter 11. He talks about the day. It says, aren't there 12 hours in a day? In the last video, we addressed that, what that meant. I even have a diagram showing the points of the sun so we could understand the 12 points of the sun that indicates the daytime. So it says, are there not 12 hours in the day, making a factual statement and then going into a spiritual understanding? He did this a lot, especially when teaching people in parables. It says, if any man walk in the day, he stumbles not, because he sees the light of this world. He says, but if a man walk at night, he stumbles because there is no light in him. So if you know that it's spiritual, because he says in him instead of there's no light outside, or he doesn't see the light. Verse 11, it says, these things said he. After that, he said unto them, our friend Eliezer sleeps, or talking about who people call Lazarus, but I go that I may awake him out of sleep. So this is very important for us to see. Let's go to, do people work at night? Let's go to John. So he says the night is coming where no man will work. Let's go to John 9:4. He says, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night comes when no man can work. Is he talking about the daytime? No, he is not talking about the daytime. So we cannot say this is a teaching on when the day starts and what people do at night. That doesn't make sense. It says the day is, while the day is, and the night is coming where no man can work. He's going to explain this. He says, as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. What does that mean? That means that as long as he is in the world, it is day. It is day. That doesn't mean it's literally daytime every single moment because he was here. No, it's not what he's saying. He's saying that light from Yah, truth, understanding is here. The kingdom is here. It says, when he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle and anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay. And he told him to go wash it. So it's very clear. I am the light of the world. This is not, the night is coming when no man can work. Is that referring to when Messiah leaves? When the Messiah leaves, is there no more light in this world? The answer is no. One, it says, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. Well, guess who he said will do greater works in John 14? It says, you will do greater works. But then he says, as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. But guess what he says in Matthew chapter 5? In Matthew chapter 5, he says, looking at verse, let's see. Verse 14, you are the light of the world. You are a light of the world. Verse 16, let your light shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So did the world go to darkness when Messiah left? No, because he said, you are now the light of the world. He not only said you are the light of the world, he says, let men may see your good works and glorify Yah. John 14 says, you will do greater works than I am. So what is the dark? What is the night that's coming? The night that's coming is when there's no workings of Messiah. There's no teaching. There's no preaching. There's nothing but judgment. He is talking about judgment. The judgment comes where nobody is going to work. Nobody's going to see any light. Matter of fact, if you look at, where is it? Joel chapter 2. Look at what he says about the judgment day. Look at what he says. It says, blow the shofar in Zion and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahuah comes, and it is nigh at hand, a day of darkness and gloominess. a day of clouds and thick darkness. As the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, and there has not been ever like, neither shall there be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. So it says a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of a thick cloud and thick darkness. Do you understand that? There's not going to be the day of Yahuwah when he brings judgment. There's not going to be any workings of Yahushua, any workings of the Father on this earth. So when he says the night is coming, it is a spiritual understanding. I probably should do a special. I'm going to do a separate video in case you guys are not looking at it in that sense. I'm going to do a special video focusing on the meaning of it. But this is very important for us to understand. He is not giving us a lesson on the day and night. He is telling us the spiritual understanding. Let's go to John chapter 3. Look at what he's doing. John chapter 3 said there was a man of the Parashim, this is the Pharisees, named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Yahudim. The same came to Yahushua by night and said to him, Teacher, we know that you are a teacher come from Elohim. No man can do those miracles that you do except Elohim be with him. So he clearly is doing his work by night, because his work was to bring the kingdom, was to teach the kingdom, was to elevate and allow people to acknowledge the kingdom. And it clearly shows us that he was working at night. I don't know why I have to say this, but these are actual things that people believe, and they conclude because of these ideas, they conclude that the day doesn't start during the day because nobody does anything at night. So we're going to look at men, and then we're going to look at the creation to see if Yah did anything at night. It says, these are the singers, chief of the fathers of the Levites, who remain in the chambers were free. They were employed in that work day and night. What work? It was the work of the singing, the worshiping. They were in the temple working day and night. In the temple. These are spiritual works. That's doing it. Physical, I mean, they're physically there doing it. It's probably exhausting. After they finish, they go to sleep. But they're there day and night. The idea that nobody does anything at night is just a silly idea. You know, that's a silly idea. Luke chapter 5, verse 5. It says, and Shimon, or Simon, answering, said to him, Rabbi, have we toiled all night and have taken nothing? Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. So they're working all night to catch fish. Yes, they're out in the water at night trying to catch fish all night. And then the Messiah tells them to cast their net off the side. So it's very clear that they work at night. How about after the resurrection of Messiah? This is before the resurrection, obviously. This is when they met him. John chapter 21, which brings us to the end of the of this showing the resurrection. It says, Simon Kepha said to him, I'm going fishing. And they said to him, we'll go with you. They went forth and entered into the ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing. So when are they fishing? They're fishing at night. They're fishermen, so they fish for a living. We get that? They fish for a living. The first thing that you saw was them fishing at night and catching nothing for their living. This is before they even followed Messiah. This is after the resurrection. It says, when the morning came, in verse 4, Yahushua stood on the shore, but the disciples did not know that it was Yahushua. So this is the morning, but all night they were fishing. Do they do things at night? Obviously. Acts chapter 1, verse 3, it says, to whom also he showed himself alive, his passion by many infallible proofs, being seen of them for 40 days, speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of Elohim. Obviously, it was not just days, it was nights as well. He did not disappear every night and then reappear during the day. So let's go back to that. There's an argument saying that in Genesis, the Messiah or Yah created only during the day. So he created only during the day. And if you look at it, it says, you guys know all of this stuff, that he created the abundance of living things in the waters and the wings, the birds, and he created the earth and all of these things, the luminaries in the sky, all living creatures, right, of the earth, the beast, the creeping things, right? Now, it's not telling you what part of the day he's doing it. It's saying that this is the first day that he did it. Now, we already said that the cycle of a day, according to the scriptures that we read, are both day and night. So when he's creating and it says the first day, fifth day, sixth day, it's not an indicator at what point of that day was he doing it. So look at this. Let's go to, I believe it's in Psalms 104. Psalms 104. Look at what it says here. I think it's talking about, let's see, Psalms 104:19 talks about them, right, there we go. So it says, he made the moon for the appointed feast. The sun knows his going down. We talk about this verse a lot in the last QnA video. But look at verse 20 of Psalms 104. It says, you make darkness, and it is night, where all the beasts of the forest do creep. The lions roar after their prey, seek their meat from Elohim. When the sun rises, they gather themselves together and lay them down in their dens. And man goes forth to his work and labor until the evening. O Yahuwah, how manifold are your works. In wisdom have you made them all. The earth is full of your riches. So look at what he did at night. He made the darkness and he made night. He made animals, specific animals for the night, specific creeping things for the night, that specific birds that only come out at night. When the sun rises, they go in their dens, they go and hide. So how are we saying he made all of these things during the day and then at night, he didn't do anything? You know what that means? That means that Yah rested every single night from his creation. There's fish that dwells in the light. There's fish that's in the darkest part of the sea. There's birds that wake up during the night, and there's birds that fly around during the day. The same birds, you don't see the same birds at night flying around in some places. Same thing with the cattle. I mean, scripture is very clear. Scripture is very clear. So the idea that he rested every single night doesn't conclude the purpose of the Shabbat. Check out what the Shabbat says. It says, on the seventh day, Elohim ended his work. Did he end his work on the first day at night? No, even if you say end, I'm saying end, it says, which he made and he rested, right? The word rest means to cease, right? That's what the word Shabbat means. The word Shabbat means to cease. Let's look it up, right? It says, and he rested, H76, 73. It says he rested. It means to cease. Let's go to the Strongs. To repose, to desist, to stop. That's all it's saying, right? He stopped. He stopped on the seventh day from all of his work, which he made. So what's happening is, if we're saying that Yah stopped every night, why is this saying that he ended and stopped only on the seventh day? Well, it's because of the wrong conclusion. Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he stopped from all his work, which Elohim created and made. So what am I saying? I'm saying that he worked during the day and he worked during the night. Why? Because Yah created the night, he created the darkness, and he created the nocturnal animals that live in the night. So the idea that he stopped every night will be countering the reason why we have a Shabbat, and the reason why it gives us, because he stopped on the seventh day. Very, very simple. wording. I mean, so I hope that this Q&A was simple. I do have a few points that I want to make with the Shabbat from Nehemiah. I know everybody, there's kind of a counter of Nehemiah 13. So we're going to talk about Nehemiah 13, but we're not only going to talk about Nehemiah 13, we're also going to talk about the Pesach. And we're going to see how the structure of the Pesach was and how Nehemiah reveals what their practice was, so that way we could understand what they were doing, not just it saying night or day or night, but seeing what people were actually doing at what point of the day and what did they say about those things. So we're going to touch on that. And in the following videos, it may not be labeled as Q&A. It will be labeled as when does the Shabbat start according to Nehemiah, and I will do another one, when does the day start according to the Exodus. All right, so I hope that this was a blessing to everybody watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Shalom, everyone. Shalom, shalom. Thank you guys for joining our study today. I hope that it was edifying. And if you want to support this ministry, you can support us on 4alc.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube page. Click the like button and the notification bell. I hope to see you guys on the next study. Shalom, guys.